Denzel Curry is a prominent member of Florida's hip-hop scene with some pretty important contributions to modern trap at this point, I think. He has a pretty good handful of projects under his belt. There was Nostalgia 64 and Ta13OO. Most people know him for Imperial and 13, the 13-minute EP that came out last year, both of which I thought were very solid releases. Not perfect, but I think they infused elements of hardcore hip-hop and cloud rap very effectively, and the beats were chillingly dark and smooth with quite an unsettling edge. And oh my god, Denzel Curry's hooks just in general are so solid. And now we have this album, Taboo, which was released in 3 separate parts, and I think the biggest difference for me with this project as opposed to his past work is the fact that the beats do feel noticeably cheaper. Especially on the second disc, it's kind of hard to ignore, which is a shame. But then you have the concept behind this album, which Denzel has said follows the lightest to the grayest to the darkest, most aggressive parts of his thoughts. Which I guess is like a backwards progression, considering a lot of hip-hop albums start off with the more hard-hitting bangers and then end in more somber moments. I'm gonna be honest though, a pretty decent amount of what's brought up relating to these concepts is not really distinct or captivating enough to me to set these songs apart from what I've already heard. But I'm not here to shit on this project all day. I think Denzel Curry's deliveries and flows and just technical abilities are enough to make up for these facts for the most part. It is also nice that this is a pretty brief listen, so if you're not feeling any specific moment, it's gonna be in and out pretty fast. None of the songs feel too repetitive or strung out to me. So yeah, getting into highlights, which tended to be in the first and last parts of the album for whatever reason for me. First of all, Taboo, this is the first song on the album, and it talks about his pain and his scars and his tattoos as a way of highlighting the fact that he's a stronger person because of it, or he's gotten through these things, or at least that's kind of how I see it and why this song is like on the lighter part of the album despite its still dark subject matter. And then there's a part of the song that gets into the compassion he feels for this girl, or it could be Taboo itself. Like, there is a line on this thing that leads me to believe that that's what he could be referring to here, and since he personifies himself as Taboo on this song, I guess he could be talking about himself. It's also got this really woozy, smooth beat that we're not really used to hearing from Denzel, and Black Balloons, the next track, I kind of get similar ideas from lyrically and sonically, but again, it's pulled off really well. Sumo is another clear highlight. It uses all of these like martial arts references, and the lyricism, his delivery is killer on this thing, and the really abrasive bass in the beat definitely adds to its impact. And he destroys this generation of mumble rappers in PERCS, especially in the second verse here and in the hook where he says he doesn't fuck with anyone, but especially the industry. The beat switches between these like 2 phases and definitely holds the impact of the song really well. And then you've got Vengeance, which, oh my god, dude, this song is so good! The hook on this thing knocks me flat. Denzel and JPEG both sound like total bosses here. The other guy definitely works into the track really well. His kind of raspy voice doesn't really appeal to me personally that much, but it doesn't really take away from how hard-hitting the song is, and it fits in really well. And the lyricism is so cold-blooded, this is like peak energy for the album. And Switch It Up has actually kind of grown on me pretty much because of the way the lyricism introduces this idea of the people that come into your life after fame and how maybe they're only there because of that, and people's tendencies to ride waves of hype and just dealing with that whole dynamic. And then we get to moments that kind of pale in comparison, like Sirens, which I respect the fact that this song has a distinct concept and they tried to do something conscious here, but overall it doesn't really add anything to the conversation that I haven't heard countless times before in hip-hop. And I do like the fact that Jid's on this track. I think his delivery is pretty effective, but he wasn't necessarily enough to save it for me. But yeah, it did make sense to include him on this cut, and I'm glad that he's on it. But I don't know what the fuck the Donald Duck line was. And that's another thing. There are a lot of whack bars spread throughout this thing. Like, on Super Saiyan Superman, I mean, that song is just one cringe moment after another. You've got the Tide line, the Easter egg line, and then on Mad I Got It, you've got the Jack Frost line. And again, there are a decent amount of filler cuts, which is kind of a shame for an album that's already so brief. But overall, I think this is a decent to good trap album. There aren't many glaringly bad moments, and Denzel's technical abilities are here more than they've ever been, I think. They could just come across as more fulfilling to me with better production and eliminating the cringe and the filler. So I'm feeling a 7 here. Thank you so much for watching my review. If you could subscribe to my channel, that would be great, and I will see you soon.